Last summer, it was the ice cream pop-up, and now it's a collaboration with my fellow Ohioan dessert lover, Christina Tosi. Come on, Premier Protein, I'm feeling super left out. So I'll decode that introductory statement a bit later in this content, but on August 5th of 2025, BellRing Brands updated the public markets by releasing its fiscal 2025 third quarter earnings report that covers the period ending June 30th of 2025. And I'll be utilizing those financial statements along with notes I took while listening to the earnings call and any relevant publicly disclosed information to obviously update you on the recent performance of the branded products within that functional CPG portfolio, but also utilize everything as a contextual backdrop for my expanded strategic commentary around convenient nutrition, market dynamics, and trends. But let's officially kick off the content with a quick rundown of the BellRing Brands fiscal 2025 third quarter revenue numbers. BellRing Brands reported generating quarterly net sales of $475.5 million, an increase of 6.2% year over year, which was comprised of a positive 3.5% volume increase and a 2.7% increase in price and product mix. And if we're looking at performance sequentially, BellRing Brands saw its revenue decrease slightly less than 7% quarter over quarter. If we examine quarterly net sales by brand, Premier Protein was up 6% year over year, driven by a 3.5% volume growth and a 2.5% increase in price and product mix. As for Dymatize Nutrition, the brand saw quarterly net sales increase 5.4% year over year, driven almost entirely by volume growth internationally and new product introductions. If we examine quarterly net sales by format, RTD shakes represent 80% of the total net sales, ready-to-mix powders were 17%, and then the other formats like bars in Europe were the remaining 3% of total BellRing Brands quarterly net sales. And if we highlight just the Premier Protein RTDs, which is the most impactful brand and format commercially for BellRing Brands, net sales increased by 5.9% year over year, resulting from a similar ratio of volume growth and price increases to the before mentioned brand level sales metrics. But as I regularly do within these BellRing Brands content pieces, I wanted to initially dive deeper into the Premier Protein RTD beverages business activity and then shift into examining the protein powders business activity from both Premier Protein and Dymatize. Throughout the 2020s, the RTD beverage subcategory of convenient nutrition has shown extremely strong growth compared to historical rates. And over the last 13 weeks, for the period ending June 29th of 2025, dollar sales grew 16% year over year, with most of that being attributed to volume growth. Moreover, slightly above 1 in 2 US households now consume RTD protein shakes, and the convenient nutrition category added 5 household penetration points in the past year, the highest increase of any category outside of modern sodas. Essentially, RTD protein shakes are thriving because they fit so well within the evolving lifestyles and values of today's consumers. And retailers have seen the category potential and are getting behind it by adding more space for RTD beverages, testing higher traffic aisle locations, and expanding displays in and outside of the aisle, thus accelerating categorical awareness among shoppers. But in terms of retail consumption growth by channel, the largest for Premier Protein RTDs would be wholesale clubs, which was up 12.2% year over year during this quarter. But believe it or not, the brand's other major sales channels collectively blended up that strong wholesale club performance, with mass retail growing 16.7%, grocery up 44.4%, and e-commerce growing 20.7%. Overall, Premier Protein RTD's consumption trends for both tracked and untracked channels were up 18.6% year over year. Moreover, that strong quarterly performance slightly increased the last 52-week consumption trend to now just under positive 21%. And even with that substantial increase in year-over-year retail consumption activity, consistent strong levels of production have allowed Premier Protein to retain trade and company inventory levels, with that strong stock position, along with the increased distribution and product launches like the new almond milk non-dairy variants, helping Premier Protein end the quarter with total distribution points reaching all-time highs. Furthermore, with retailers de-emphasizing less productive brands and in many cases declining convenient nutrition subcategories, which are weighing on their growth, it provides meaningful opportunity for Premier Protein to further grow TDPs over the near term. But speaking of metrics reaching all-time highs, household penetration for the entire Premier Protein brand now sits at 21.6%. This recent household penetration growth for the brand is being fueled by the first national brand advertising campaign since 2021, titled Sweeten the Journey, and promotional activity restarting, with the latter variable bringing deal-seeking buyers back towards the Premier Protein brand. Also, I believe it's important to note that Premier Protein leads the entire convenient nutrition category in household penetration and outpaces the next RTD beverages subcategory competitor by a handful of percentage points. Premier Protein market share now sits slightly below 25% of total RTD beverages category of convenient nutrition, spiking during the recent period of wholesale club promotions that extended between the fiscal second and third quarters. But with steady production across the full range of flavors, new product launches, and promotional activity returning, Premier Protein should see its market share settle into a range that consistently reaches new all-time highs throughout the rest of the calendar year. But now let's shift into examining the recent BellRing Brands business activity within ready-to-mix protein powders. And a similar range of underlying drivers impacting the RTD beverage subcategory has created strong growth within the ready-to-mix powder subcategory of convenient nutrition. In fact, nutritional supplement powders have become mainstream, with category proliferation creating an environment where more consumers are purchasing both everyday and performance nutrition positioned protein products at large retailers. But that statement about protein powder shouldn't suggest that I believe the recent pattern of steep retail sales growth trajectory will last forever. Because while I don't mind mixing up a protein shake, it would be silly to overlook the extra friction point for a lot of especially new to the category mainstream consumers, thus causing what I believe will prove to be a lower household penetration ceiling compared to RTD protein beverages. However, in stating that, I also don't think we're anywhere near that point of the commercial cycle just yet, even if ready-to-mix powders growth has slowed slightly compared to earlier this decade. Yet, it's important to acknowledge that the majority of convenient nutrition powder sales volume will continue occurring online, thus applying that same lower ceiling wouldn't necessarily apply within the multi-channel retail environment. But with BellRing Brands positioned strongly within both the performance and everyday consumer segments of convenient nutrition ready-to-mix powders, it has been benefiting twice from this marketplace tailwind. But let's stick with the Premier Protein theme and firstly break down the performance of that brand's protein powder SKUs. Premier Protein powders continue to perform strongly, with quarterly retail takeaway growth increasing slightly over 27% year over year, aided by distribution gains and strong velocities. Moreover, Premier Protein powders continue to bring new mainstream consumers into the category, with the brand generating quarterly retail takeaway growth at mass retailers up around 8%, e-commerce about 7%, and grocery performing the best at up over 14%. Furthermore, Premier Protein powders recently gained full distribution at Costco and currently has the highest velocity across all whey protein powders in this key customer. And while the strong quarterly performance still slightly dragged down the annualized growth rates, BellRing Brands leadership restated their excitement about the opportunity emerging with Premier Protein powder SKUs, as they have proven to be both incremental to RTD shake sales and beneficial towards growing the brand's household penetration. And believe it or not, Premier Protein powders have already surpassed the Dymatize household penetration, though if we're being fair to Dymatize, that's not a like-for-like comparison, because Premier Protein is a much more well-known convenient nutrition brand overall that's more recently extended formats. On the other hand, the Dymatize brand is a lot narrower, focusing on the more sophisticated performance nutrition consumer that makes up about half of the protein powder dollar sales at large retail. But maybe this is a good time to transition into analyzing the recent market activity involving Dymatize. As mentioned earlier, categorical growth over the last handful of years within large retail channels has also greatly benefited those performance nutrition brands like Dymatize that were aligned from a sales channel strategy perspective. And this has helped Dymatize become the number 4 brand in protein powders overall and the second largest market share leader in the performance nutrition segment. Nevertheless, it would be hard to overlook that retail takeaway trends have been sliding in the last year or so, as Dymatize faces a much higher level and diversity of competitive threats across all sales channels. And just to expand on that comment, it's no secret that the Great Shutdown shifted categorical shopping behaviors that benefited e-commerce, wholesale clubs, grocery stores, and mass retailers. But even if that event happened only 5 years ago, performance nutrition powder stocked at these large retailers during that time frame was much smaller in merchandising scope and extent. So the sales channel strategy decisions made by Dymatize during the mid to late 2010s perfectly position the brand as a primary beneficiary of this shifted categorical shopping behavior. But what's happening now is that every challenger brand that was either too weak or poorly positioned during the Great Shutdown impacted timeframe has followed many of the previous Dymatize sales channel strategies. Moreover, these challenger brands have a much stronger brand development focus and emotional connection with today's digital-first audience. Alternatively, a mixture of value-oriented shopping behaviors, 2 cycles of commodity price inflation in the last 3 to 4 years, and consumption growth in protein powders has led retailers to prioritize private label creations within the category. And while BellRing Brands will say that Dymatize is a premium brand, thus not competitive with private label, I bet leadership is overestimating the power of this relatively bland legacy performance nutrition brand. But even with the shifting competitive and business landscape, Dymatize had 4.5% year-over-year retail takeaway growth in the third quarter of fiscal 2025, though Dymatize did see strong quarterly e-commerce growth, which shouldn't be overlooked as it's still the largest sales channel for the brand and the ready-to-mix protein powders market overall. The catch-22 of e-commerce is that barriers to entry are the lowest, and that elevated competition online creates margin pressure. And then finally, outside of the domestic market, Dymatize continues to have strong positive momentum. But overall, continuing marketplace tailwinds such as performance protein powders becoming more mainstream and overall category proliferation help Dymatize sustain its total distribution points in all commodity volume percentage that has been hovering around all-time highs for the brand. Yet, I'm not sure that setup helps lessen the worries around what it might take strategically to get Dymatize back into consistent growth mode. So in response, BellRing Brands has attempted to invest further into Dymatize brand marketing and restart product innovation, though I'd say neither effort has resulted in meaningful success yet. Next, let's quickly shift into an operational update as it has been a volatile area over the years for BellRing Brands, stemming from both supply constraints and elevated dairy market pricing. But in terms of the RTD beverage supply volatility, BellRing Brands has been executing on a multi-year Premier Protein plan, partnering with the biggest and most reputable players in the industry to make large CapEx investments, which has now given them a scalable, regionally diverse supply chain that should enable many years of robust growth. And then regarding input cost inflation, the quarterly gross profit margin was 35.4% of net sales, which declined 140 basis points year over year, but improved 320 basis points sequentially. But those dairy proteins, which account for almost 40% of its total cost of goods sold, currently face a double whammy of price inflation. The elevated high-end whey protein pricing is an obvious cost driver, but BellRing Brands also purchases dairy proteins from other markets outside of our domestic one, like New Zealand and Europe, which are currently impacted by import tariffs. So cost inflation mitigation efforts at BellRing Brands are obviously happening, especially as it also contends with packaging redesign costs negatively impacting gross margins. And I'm not sure how many of you saw my LinkedIn post about it last month, but the refreshed Premier Protein packaging started rolling out in July, bringing a modern look that's expected to improve discoverability at the shelf and raises appeal with younger consumers. And while it did not create any impact on this reporting period, early consumer and retailer feedback has reportedly been overwhelmingly positive. But congruent with the packaging shift, Premier Protein is boosting store-level marketing investments and introducing a second wave of the brand advertising campaign. And then for the final part of this content, I wanted to quickly explain what I was referring to in my introductory statement. Understanding the power of an afternoon sweet treat, Premier Protein has consistently found ways to highlight the versatility of their product that doesn't sacrifice flavor for nutrition. Last summer, during arguably the tail end of the initial Ninja Creamy Protein ice cream frenzy, Premier Protein created a free experiential marketing activation showcasing how their protein shakes can be used to create ice cream. But this year, Premier Protein took its effort up 3 layers by collaborating with the iconic Christina Tosi and her team at Milk Bar to deliver protein-packed menu items. The Premier Protein and Milk Bar menu includes a Blueberry Pancake Super Cookie, Mega Milkshake Caramel Cake, and protein-packed Tiramisu Truffle. But here's the sad part for me and many of you too, these decadent protein treats are only available at Milk Bar flagship locations in store and for delivery in the New York City, LA, DC, and Chicago markets. And since I don't have any business travel planned over the next several weeks to these cities, I'll have to hope they extend this collaboration into packaged goods one day in the future. But I hope you enjoyed the first principles thinking that went into my latest YouTube video. If you did, can you do me a favor by hitting that like button? That quick and free action helps YouTube know my content is worth spreading to more people. Also, we're getting really close to reaching my next subscriber goal, and it would be great if you join me on this journey. But to do that, we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 3/4 of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and that hurts my feelings. Regardless, I want to thank you for giving me some of your attention and time, and I'll see you on the next one.